Hey, good afternoon. My name is Coach Nikki Cates, and I am happy to be here. How are you? I'm always going to ask, how are you? Because I am a life coach and I do care about how you are doing. So, how are you? Before we dive into what I'm getting ready to teach, I just want to do a recap of who I am and what my intention is in making these videos. Personally, I am accepting the call that God has on my life to teach and to empower through communications. Yeah, I have known for some time that I am called to transformation, that I am a conduit of God's change and powers for change and transformation. It's who I am. That's why life coaching seems like a natural progression for me. Writing is grounding for me personally, and it seems like a natural progression of ways that he uses me in order to create this transformative flow for others. I also do this through small group settings and facilitating spaces that allow for change and transformation. I'm sure on a ministry level, there is more that I should be surrendering myself to that I just haven't quite got there yet. So y'all pray for your girl. I'm not running anymore. I know I'm called to ministry. I just have not quite shifted from this space into that one fully yet. But I do start grad school at Emory University, and my master's program is Masters of Religion and Public Life. So I'm pretty sure he'll start working some things out in me as I get into that setting and really surrender myself to the study of the Word and Christianity and other religions, even just greater understanding and genuinely what that looks like to allow God to use you through His Word and in the ways that He intended for what's best for all of us. So I say all that to say this is who I am, and it is my passion to bridge cultural thought with biblical truth. And for a while there, I focused on the cultural aspect, and I spoke to people like they already understood how that either paralleled or intersected or went against what the Bible says. But the truth is that most of us don't. Or we go so far on one side that we don't understand that there's another, right? That there is not a riding in the middle of in the road. And it's so funny because it's how I'm wired. I was wired this way. I was an independent for many years because I see myself more as a centrist when it comes to my beliefs and my values. And I feel that way when it comes to this too. I feel like God gave us culture. He gave us cultural thought. He gave us people, thought leaders, and educators, and activists and advocates. He gave us these people with the gifts that they have, whether it was Octavia Butler through writing, or Barack Obama through his speeches and his politics, or I'm drawing blanks right now, Beyonce in entertainment. We have Oprah, right, in media. We have so many examples and so many better ones than the ones I just gave you. I just wasn't prepared to give you all a list right now. But the truth is that there are so many ways that we can be used to do a lot of the same things. And I think that's something that when you are not settled in who you are and what your purpose is, it is very easy to feel marginalized even when it comes to whatever space that you believe you're supposed to be flowing in, because you're not confident in it. And when you're not confident, you feel the pressures of competition, right? How many people have hung up shingles saying that they are life coaches online? How many? Right? If you Google women's empowerment, it brings up a plethora of options of all cultures and races and countries. Okay? So, yeah, it can be intimidating. But when you know who you are and you're in alignment with who God says that you are, what He created you for, and what you specifically are gifted to do, what is your calling? No one else can stand in that. That's for you and you only. So there are other writers. There are other advocators for Black women, for women. There are other teachers. There are other content creators and influencers. I don't have to feel like I'm competing because I understand where I belong. And it's right here, in front of the mic, in front of this camera, and in front of my laptop or that piece of paper at that moment, as I'm allowing myself to be a scribe to what it is that God wants us to find a bridge between. Okay? I love reading Black cultural thought specifically, right? I speak of Bell Hooks a lot because I love her works. But that still has to have a bridge that is created between that and the truth of what God's word says, because sometimes self-help and self-recovery and self-development is very self-focused to the point where we can become self-idols. And that's why you have to also be open to what God says about it too. Okay? So that's my intention. And anything that you're going to see me putting out from this day forward, whether it be teaching videos like this, my podcast that releases on Saturday mornings, any of my content on TikTok, my writing on Substack and Medium. Listen, I'm stepping out on a limb and putting myself out there for the greater good of everyone in the way that I was called to do so. And I'm encouraging you to begin to take the journey to do the same thing. The only way we're going to actually be successful at any resistance or revolution, my sister, my brother, is through a collective effort. We all need to come together with what we bring to the table, pieces of the puzzle, that in order to create a whole picture, every piece needs to be positioned with its own unique part or contribution to the big picture. That's the kind of movement that we need now. All right. I just spent almost 10 minutes rambling on my soapbox. Let's talk about marginalization. Now, I did just write an article on this. If you want to read the article, I will also put the link in the show notes, but you can subscribe, free or paid, to my publication, my Substack publication, The Sacred Resistance Journal. And that's going to be, you can go to substack.com/@Coach Nikki Cates. That's NIKKICATES with coach in front. No upper lower cases, no hyphens, no underscores, no periods, just at, the at symbol, coach, COACH, NIKKICATES. If you go to that link, you'll be able to sign up for whichever publications that you would like. If you are one of my sisters, a 92%er, or an ally or an accomplice of the 92%, please join Sisters Unbothered and become a part of that community, because it's not just about me talking to y'all. I want y'all to talk back to me, and that's why I created a space for us to have those conversations. All right. Obviously on here, I would love for you all to, have a conversation in the comments, but be kind to each other. And let's keep it cordial. Let's keep it cute. All right, y'all, be kind. If you're not, just like I do on TikTok, you will get blocked with no questions asked, point blank and period. Okay? That's how we rolling now. We ain't going back and forth with each other. Them days is gone, y'all. All right. So, moving into the conversation I want to have today about marginalization. What I realized as I was writing this is that a lot of times, and I've said this before in the past in any of my other content, we tend to have this habit of using words because they are buzzwords that we think fit with what we're trying to talk about, but we don't genuinely know what the words mean. I'm a little embarrassed to tell y'all that for years, I thought marginalization, disenfranchisement, I thought these were all the same thing. They all described a people that were treated less than, right? Secondary. And while that may be slightly true, they are not the same things. For someone to be disenfranchised means that they are not giving the right to vote. But marginalization is what we're talking about today. Marginalization is much more encompassing across life. Okay? So, what exactly does that mean? The way that it's easiest for me to understand and to describe to you all is a piece of paper, right? A piece of paper where you're going to realize that there are margins, right? How many of you are familiar with a Google document or Microsoft Word? Okay, you have that document, and where you type or interact on that document is always going to be in like the middle portions of the page. You're going to have blank space on the left and the right and the top and the bottom, when we call those margins. You have a header and a footer at the top and the bottom, and then you have the margins, left and right margins on the left and the right sides. Okay? Marginalization is like being pushed to those margins. So what has happened in the United States society, in this U.S. experiment from the very beginning, is that white, straight males were the only ones that were deserving to be in the main body of the page. Women were pushed to the corners, no matter skin color. Slaves brought to this country, considered 3/5. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, we're talking about the 3/5 compromise, where they decided so that they could create an electoral college or a count of population by counting only 3 out of 5 slaves. So there was a whole 2 slaves that weren't considered human people, citizens. Which is interesting because none of the 3/5 could vote. Out of the 5, just because 3 was counted on white men's benefit, didn't mean that they were able to have a voice. They were not. So, those African Americans, those slaves that were forced into becoming members of this nation, were immediately pushed to the left and right margins, sometimes the headers and the footers. Marginalized, right? Second thoughts. Not for consideration unless necessary. Less than. Not as important. Not as welcome or validated as those that are within the margins. Right? The main body of the page. It's here where you are reading a book and you write your thoughts on the sides of the page or the top or the bottom. Just an afterthought. Something to consider as a part of the real story. Consider, but not accept as part of. Okay? So in society, marginalized people are the ones that are pushed out of the center space. Okay? Out of the center space, whether because of race, gender, class, disability, or identity. In current times, the term DEI has been used to describe this group of marginalized people. And funny enough, because the MO of this country has been divide and conquer, many of those that still fall under that DEI status assume that DEI is not including disability or possibly LGBTQIA, depending on how you're looking at it, or gender with white skin, white women specifically. You forget that that is also included in DEI, instead of assuming that DEI is only those people that are pushed to the corners of the page, the headers and the footers, the left and the right margins, the afterthoughts, the secondaries, the others. You assume that when they're using that term DEI, that they're referring to this racist dog whistle, that we're only talking about people of darker skin, the others, right? But the truth is, our society was built that only one demographic of people deserve to be center page. Everyone else, including white women, were intended to be the extras to their story. Okay? That's what marginalization is. And the thing is, marginalization isn't accidental. It was created just like the construct of race. Race was a construct created by Anglo-Saxon men for control and power. Okay? It was created for capitalism, right? The machine of capitalism. Someone has to be poor in order for someone to be rich. Someone has to do the work in order for others to benefit from it, right? Think about it. This concept is written into our policies, our systems, our social norms. This Constitution that we've all been barking about recently because of the current administration attempting to wipe it away, that was created, including those in the margins, to stay in the margins. But through movements like the Civil Rights Movement, we were able to have amendments added, like the 14th Amendment, to take us out of those corners and bring us into this thing called America, where it was more than just America, but this melting pot that we all believed that it was becoming to be. But still, those that were destined to remain center page, their intention has always been to prioritize certain voices over others and silencing everyone else. Okay? So marginalization looks like being denied opportunities based on who you are, which is why something like affirmative action or DEI policies are necessary. Not because you're trying to give someone that's not qualified a chance or opportunity, which is something that we see happen with those center page consistently. I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to say it. We have someone running this country that technically is the real DEI hire. Right? Let's just keep it real. So, matter of fact, his whole cabinet are DEI hires. Nepotism at best. Brohood, right? Marginalization also looks like having your history erased. That battle started in Florida. I'm in Florida now. People think I am bananas to have left Prince George's County, Maryland, where we can be as beautiful, black, and wealthy as we want to be. Before that, Atlanta for 12 years. To move to Florida, where I struggle to find black business owners. I lived somewhere where they were one of the first to decide that we needed to erase the true history of America. I'm not just going to say black history, because black history is American history. Marginalization also looks like fighting for rights that should have been yours all along. Thank God for Hillman Talk educating us. Dred Scott case. It was deemed very clearly that the Constitution was not written to include people of color. We had to fight for that at the charge of black women and black men. Thank God for it. But what's one of the first things on the cutting block with this current administration to get things back to those center page being the only ones center page, y'all? Cutting out the 14th Amendment, freedom of speech. Sorry, y'all, my light went out on me. Hope you can still see me. Marginalization also looks like being told to stop making everything about race or gender. Why do we keep playing the race card? Why do we keep playing the gender card? You know why? Because there are systems that are still being used to oppress people for their race and their gender. So we're going to have to talk about it. Here's the truth, y'all. We are still fighting against systems that try to keep certain people in the margins. We are in an administration now in this country that is seeking not only to only put a certain demographic of people center page. And that's not just because their skin is paler, it's because they have more resources. Trying to push us back to the times when the Constitution literally was only to protect white, straight men, property owners, meaning wealthy white men. And that's where we are now. But the plan, divide and conquer, is to give those that have the same skin color, but not the same resources, false hope that their white privilege is enough for them to be included in that center page. But the truth is they are not. That would not be keeping the capitalistic machine running. Okay? Look at the fact that we are still experiencing firsts in 2025. This has been bothering me for years, that we're getting firsts. The first black woman this, the first black man that, the first black entertainer this, the first Latina that, the first native or indigenous this. They've been here longer than anybody. Yes, these are milestones that are supposed to show us progress, but they're also proof of how long entire communities have been pushed and left and expected to stay in the margins. I'm pausing for effect. Let that sink in. And yet, when we talk about race or gender, we hear things like, why do we have to make everything about race? Doesn't God want us to be colorblind? Why can't y'all just move on? But the Bible is clear. Let's bridge this now. God has never told anyone to be colorblind. From the Israelites crying out under Pharaoh's oppressive rule, to Jesus centering his ministry to the poor, the sick, and the outcasts, God has always been in the business of lifting us up in the marginalized community. So let me say this plainly as I can, okay? I might have to read it to make sure I say it as clear as I need to say it. If we truly follow Jesus, we cannot ignore injustice. And those of you that choose to do so, what Jesus are you following? I'm assuming you still following the white one that doesn't exist. I said it. We cannot pretend marginalization doesn't exist. This country was built on it. Many countries were built on it. We cannot sit comfortably while people are pushed to the edges of society and expected to stay there in 2025, where technology has surpassed anything we could have ever dreamed of. We are supposed to be evolving, y'all, not making America great again all the way back in the early 1800s, where the only people that mattered and had a voice were white, straight, male landowners, slave owners, with their good little wives at home taking care of their good little children, who really weren't, because really the slave women were doing it for them, while they just sat and looked pretty and made everybody miserable. That's where we came from, and that's supposed to be when America was great. Sacred resistance means seeing the margins and, like God, doing something about it. Okay? If this message resonates with you, I want to keep the conversation going. I ask that you will like, comment, and share your thoughts. I pray that you will share this with someone that it may be useful. Share it with your small group or wherever you see fit. But let's be educated. Let's be aware. And let's start to bridge the systems in this world that we're fighting with God's truth. And part of his truth is that there are systems that are operating in this world in the unseen realm, not just those in the center page, but who or what is driving them. Because think about it, where does greed originate? Where does hate, rage, where does that originate? Oppression. Where does that originate? Those unseen powers, right? Dark, evil, devilishly inspired powers. Yeah, we're entering into a fight that's already been going on for centuries. And I said this in a video this week. I am so sorry to our people that have already fought this fight before. And 50, 60, 30 years later, here you are having to fight it again with us. I apologize for us, for being too comfortable, too complacent to even understand definitions of words like marginalization. This is not just political and social or cultural. This is also spiritual. Okay? I love you. Whether you like it or not, revolution is here. The resistance has begun. How are you going to do your part? Stick with me. I'm going to help you figure that out. Okay? All right. I will talk to y'all next week.